All right, it looks like we are live. Let's just make sure here that we're getting up and we're getting people on. So we are live for part 2 of the ABCs of building a house here on Facebook today. We're just going to give it a couple minutes and make sure that people that are wanting to watch are able to come on before we get started here. It looks like we're starting to get a few people coming on, so just want to make sure here that everybody has a chance to kind of jump on and hear what we have to say. There it goes. Now I can see comments. All right. As we get started here, I will also add that if you have any questions, please feel free to type those into the comments and we'll answer those as we go. I will remind people throughout today to be sure to type in comments as well. And we're going to go ahead and get started here. We've got a couple people on and I'm sure others will join here as we get started, but we'll start with introductions here. So I'm Christina Thrun. I'm the Executive Officer for the Chippewa Valley Home Builders Association. And we here are hosting our part 2 of our ABCs of home building. And I'm joined here today with Adam Ashley from Ashley Construction, who's going to be sharing, what you need to know from the builder's perspective. So last week on Wednesday, we covered what you need to know from a lender and the title company perspective, researching lenders, how the construction financing works, the role of the title company, draw process and appraisal. So feel free to check out our Facebook page for more for that video that's available and available for viewing from last week's live. But tonight here we're gonna get into talking a little bit more about what you need to know from the builder's perspective. So Adam, let's just get started right away with what are the 3 options to buying a new house?
Well, you can buy a home from a contractor once it's completed. I guess we would call those a spec home. Like myself and other builders will often do those in our own developments or other people's developments. So we just kind of speculate what we think the market will sustain as far as a home and build that home, take it to completion, and then list it up for sale. And you'd buy that just like purchasing an existing home on the market. Another option is to buy a lot and build a house later. So you can buy that lot just to have that out of the way. So you're not searching for that. It helps you to understand the incurred costs that are associated with that lot, helps you with the design of your home. And it's a good step to get out of the way. Another idea is you can buy a lot and build right now with a contractor.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit more about the building process and how that works if you're going to be building a house?
I guess if you're talking about building a custom home, one of the first things that we like to do is, like you talked about in your last meeting, is to get the financing pre-approval taken care of, just so you understand where your budget's at and where you want to be at. That really helps get things started on the right foot. Understanding that will lead you into the drafting process, and you can help design the house based on that. You do want to understand or be able to communicate with your builder the style of home that you'd like, your needs versus your wants, certainly the level of finishes that you have in mind, along with your schedule. Those are all very important things to kind of understand right from the beginning. Drafting can look different for any given person building a home. Many lumber yards have a drafting website. Like Lyman Lumber has a drafting website with plans posted on there. Those plans are houses that have been built in the Chippewa Valley by local builders. It's not as daunting as going on houseplans.com or architecturaldesigns.com. Those can have thousands of plans that aren't necessarily viable in this area, where Lyman or other local lumber yards have plans like that. You can also look at plans that your builder may have. In my experience, it usually ends up as a hybrid of a couple of different plans, or one plan that's really close, and then we make adjustments to make that home their own. Pricing is, again, something very important to know from the beginning, as far as what the homeowner's budget is, what their goals are. What you want, if you have a good and honest discussion about that, you can come up with a general idea on pricing. That helps you so that when you go through the drafting process and getting it priced out, you end up in the realm of where you want to be, so that that becomes a results producing activity for the homeowner. It can be very frustrating if they draw the home and they're mentally living in it, and then they get the price back and it's way below or above where they want it to be. And then it's just kind of harder to start over from that point. So again, having that good, honest and open conversation about pricing is very important from the beginning. And then scheduling, of course, that's another thing to communicate well on. I like to talk about your ideal move-in date. So if you understand the ideal move-in date, and kind of work backwards from there. Any given builder will have a lead time that will range widely. And most of our homes take about 5 months to build from when we break ground to when you move in. There's financing that needs to take place, there's pricing, there's drafting, all of that fun stuff. So we kind of want to just pick the move-in date and then work backwards from there and figure out how soon you need to start the ball rolling.
Okay. So if we're going to be buying a house that's already in process, you're already building a spec home, how does that work? And can you make any final decisions on the house itself?
I think that'll vary a little bit with each builder, each spec builder. I think for the most part, you are able to do that, yes. So if things haven't already been selected or ordered, windows are an example. If the windows have been ordered, and those are typically ordered a few weeks in advance, that's something that's going to be very difficult to change. If you're talking about, flooring selections, cabinet layout, or colors and paint colors, and those items haven't been done already, it's usually not a problem at all to make those selections, which is kind of nice. It just gives it might not be your exact house plan, but you can put your touches on it. So.
Okay. So when someone's looking to build a house and is looking to work with a builder, how do they go about selecting a builder? What are some of the questions they should ask?
I guess what I'll always tell people is it's great to talk with builders. I mean, whether you want to talk with 2 or 12 builders, I think it's a really good idea. You're entering into a relationship, really. You have a lot of contact over a long period of time. There's a large amount of money that exchanges hands. So you really want to make sure that your personalities align and that things feel like they're going to go well for you, and that builder's process aligns with what you're looking for. Most years, this year was a little different, although we do have a parade of homes up and coming. I'll always encourage people to attend the parade of homes. It's a less formal way to kind of run into builders, talk to them in an open setting without scheduling a meeting and going to their office or having them come to your home. So again, go through maybe the parade of homes next year or this fall still, and talk to as many builders as you're able. Get a feel for their work or what they do, and just how you guys interact together. I will encourage people that, just go through that, meet with many builders, and then kind of pick the one that you feel the most comfortable with and go with that builder through the drafting and pricing stages. If that goes well, if it all goes the way that you expect it to or anticipate it to, I suggest just sticking with that builder and moving forward with the build. If for some reason things go awry, if you feel like you won't work as well together as you had hoped, or the budget is out of line with what you feel like you discussed from the beginning, at that point, it's a good idea to take your plan and give it to a couple of other builders for different pricing. But in my experience, it hasn't been a good process to have 5 different builders either bidding on one plan from the beginning, or 3 different builders working on 3 different plans. It's very confusing. It's very hard to get an apples to apples comparison.
Okay. So when talking about the bidding process, if someone, one of the questions we get a lot is, how do I get a ballpark price? I just want an idea of what it's going to cost, and can I afford to build what I'm thinking I want to build? How would someone go about getting that?
Sure. I think that's something that's very important to discuss in that first meeting with the builder. The way we do it is we'll just have just a general discussion on the style of home that you're looking for. Style of home, finish level, and then basically, if you know where you're building or where you hope to build, we can determine the incurred cost of building on that particular building site. So from there, if you were to say we want to build a 3-bedroom home that's 1,600 square feet with a 3-car garage, we can have a quick discussion on that and look at projects that we've either built recently or priced recently, and just compare and contrast that to what you're looking for. Usually you can apply modifiers if you know, the house that you're looking at has vinyl windows and the customer wants a full Marvin window. You can do an adder for that, or vinyl siding versus LP siding, different flooring types, that kind of thing. And that'll help paint a general picture. It's certainly not going to be 100% accurate, but it will get you in the right ballpark of where you're headed, and just to make sure that it's viable or that your expectations align with your budget.
I'm going to pause quick too and just remind people that if you do have a question, feel free to go ahead and type that into the comments. We are in a few second delay, but we will definitely answer any questions that you would have. So just go ahead and type those in the comments if you have any questions as we're going through. So you talked on this a little bit with the process and the bidding process. So one of in the drafting a plan, one of the questions people usually have is like, okay, how do we get a plan? You talked a little bit about like the lumber yards and stuff, but if they already have a plan ready and they want to get that bid out, you know, how does that work? Or if they want to have a plan designed and then take it to builders, how does that process work if they want to do their own plan design?
I guess if you already have a plan put together, that then it's usually ready. If it's accurate and detailed, I guess that's the big thing. So again, finding a plan on houseplans.com isn't necessarily a plan that we can use for pricing. They don't show specific window sizes and header sizes and just different things that we need those details on. But if it's a locally drawn plan that we're used to working with, then you're good to go, and we can get that sent out. We will always do a fully detailed and qualified bid process. So we'll send it to every one of our subcontractors along with all of our suppliers and get pricing on that specific house plan for you. If you needed plan drafted, like I said, we'll usually talk about what your wants are, what your needs are, your budget, your finishes, and just kind of look through some plans and see what you may like. That'll help paint a picture. Usually just talking to a builder. Usually most builders have done enough homes that you can come up with an idea of what people are looking for, and from there we can take it into drafting. That can look different with different builders. We use Lyman Lumber's drafting department. Most lumber yards have a drafting department. That would be a small cost, or a potential small cost to you, unless you buy materials from that lumber yard, then that gets waived. You can also look at an independent drafter to put something together. Now, one thing I really like to touch on is that sometimes people search for the exact house plan, and that's very difficult to find. So I'll meet with people and they say, we can't find a plan. And then we work together on it and just start looking at plans. And they say, we like the master suite on this one and the guest bedrooms, but we don't like the kitchen, or this house is missing a half bath, or it only has a 2-car garage. And those are all things that are very easily changed or added when you go into a drafting process of a custom home. So it's not the end of the world if it's missing a component, because typically you can incorporate that, or you can meld 2 plans together or 3 plans together and get it the way you want it. And that's kind of the beauty of that custom home, is getting it exactly the way you want it.
All right. So one of the questions, we're talking about pricing, you know, we've talked a little bit about how the bid process works, and obviously it's very involved to get an official bid. So until somebody's actually ready to know that this is a builder that they're actually interested in working with, you know, you don't want to necessarily go through the full out bid process. But one of the questions we get asked a lot is, what's the average square foot price to build a new house? How do you answer that?
That's a very difficult question to answer. And it always sounds like a builder is kind of dancing around or skirting that question, but there's a lot involved. So square foot pricing is going to change with every single house plan. Every house has different components that are going to drive the cost one way or another. For example, if we go back to that 1,600 square foot home with a 3-car garage, if it has a very simple cantilevered covered front porch, that's going to price differently than that same 1,600 square foot home with a 3-sided wraparound porch with decorative stone columns every 8 feet placed throughout. Those are extra costs that are incurred for amenities that are outside of that square foot number. So when you do the math, that artificially inflates the price per square foot. Really, the only time square foot pricing is accurate is if a builder builds a specific house plan over and over again. They can usually tell you what the cost of that home is. But that being said, that's going to change based on the specific lot that is built on. If you build on a city lot that has city water and sewer and a 30-foot driveway, the price of that is going to be much lower to build than if you build out in the country and you have a 300-foot driveway and you have to put in a mound system and drill a well. So really just having more information, the more information you have, the better it is, or the closer you can get. And again, every house is going to price differently per square foot, but you can usually discuss a range, low level to high level, and paint a picture that way.
And we touched on this a little bit last week, but this is always one of the biggest questions that come up is what happens when, changes are made. So you go through the bid process, let's say the house is going to cost $350,000 and you're going through the bid process and some of the decisions the customer makes adds on to the cost of that. It's over and above what that original bid was. How does that work?
Right. So in my experience, the best way to handle that is to provide pricing for that, clearly explain to the customer how much the overage is on that individual line item, and get their approval in advance. The stereotype that houses will always end up overpriced by 10%, 15%, or whatever it is, that there'll always be cost overruns. It's almost can always be eliminated just by communicating really well on things. It's fine if people see, shiny objects along the way and they decide they really want to upgrade and they have the money for it. But what you don't want is for your builder to spend your money for you and then at the end say, surprise, all of those changes you have add up to $20,000. The best way is if you pick a quartz countertop instead of granite, your builder should show you this countertop is X amount of dollars more than what your contract price is. Are you okay with that? And once you've approved that, it's not a bad idea. It's actually a great idea to discuss that with the lender, just so you understand where they are financially and if that's a problem or not. But once you have that approval, you also want to keep track of that as you go through the build, just so that those numbers, again, don't surprise you at the end.
All right, and I'll just add another quick reminder because I know some people are jumping on as we go through here that if you do have any questions, feel free to type those in the comments and we'll answer those as we go. So Adam, what's the difference between buying land that you're going to build on and buying a lot in a development?
I guess, well, just depending on what the land is, the incurred costs can be different. If you build with sorry, my dog's in the background. If you build in a development with the builder who is doing that development, oftentimes there can be cost savings. Like, for example, if we have fill remaining from one home, we can use that in your home for a very small cost. That builder can usually control the way each lot or yard is set up to make sure the drainage works and all of that fun stuff. Where if you build in kind of a standalone lot or just a remote parcel of land, you have to deal with the hand that you're dealt at that point, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but you do want to understand what those costs mean. So any development or subdivision is going to have the utilities installed that are needed. You're going to have gas and electric and cable or internet if that's available. Where you just need to do a little bit more homework if you build on an individual parcel of land so that you fully understand what additional costs will be incurred.
Okay. What are some considerations to think about when you're selecting the land or the lot that you're going to be on? What are some things you want to pay attention to?
Yep, you'll certainly want to go past the list price of that land. You want to look beyond that. So again, I'll go back to that city lot setting. So if you build on a city lot that's already clear and it's flat and you connect city water and sewer, and then you're comparing that to a rural lot, maybe the price is less for that rural lot, but you need to clear 2 acres of trees and bring in a bunch of dirt to build the driveway. Again, a mound system versus a city sewer or water. Those are big numbers that can change things very quickly. So again, you want to look beyond that face value of the lot into the incurred cost of building. Most builders are very familiar with the surrounding areas in the Chippewa Valley and can tell you quickly what those costs are or approximately what they are. So I would always encourage everyone before they buy that lot or before they write that offer, just reach out to the builder they're going to use or a builder and just get their thoughts on it. It's just something where if you do it every day, it's easy to share those ideas with you so that you're not surprised when you get into it.
So what are some of the considerations for the house itself in terms of the land? Like what are things with the house design that you want to take into account based on the land you're on?
Yeah, absolutely. So the design of the house or the style of the home, I guess you obviously want to make sure that that lot is going to accommodate that home or that parcel of land. So if your home is wide and long and sprawling and has a side loaded garage and you need a 300-foot wide lot to accommodate that or to get access to it, you certainly want to make sure that you have that. I met with a woman recently who really wants a walkout basement on their home. And so you need to make sure that if that's what you like, that you find a lot that accommodates that, or that the excavation can be done to accommodate that. Orientation of the home, if it's a corner lot, that can be a consideration if you care what side the garage is on and that type of thing. So I'd say the grade of the lot, the size of it, definitely. Usually in a rural setting, that's not a huge challenge. They're usually much bigger. But if you're building in the city, specifically in a modern development, the lots end up being narrower. And that needs to be considered well in advance of drafting.
Okay. So then when you're looking at the home design and what you want to build in terms of a house, what are some of the things that you should consider in addition to just how it sits on the land with the house itself?
Yeah, I guess orientation to the sun. If you have southern facing, you want to take advantage of that. Views, certainly, just how if there's a specific area that you want to see, that can help in the design process. Make sure that you have windows in the right location. If you have a certain direction that you don't want to see, you may consider having fewer windows there or your garage on that side of the home to kind of provide some screening or some privacy. I guess what your landscaping expectations are as well. So if you want a big sprawling yard and not a lot of hills to mow on, want to consider that and make sure that you landscape accordingly. And those things all start early on in that drafting process.
What are restrictive covenants and how can that impact the
Sure.
design?
So covenants, we like to call them protective covenants because they kind of protect the value of your property and anyone else's in that specific development. So those can range widely depending on the development. They can be very in-depth or very simple. Sometimes, but it is very important that you check those and understand those. Sometimes builders will have, or developers will have, a minimum square foot size of that home. Well, obviously that's going to drive the cost. We don't do that. In my opinion, you can build a very small home that looks really nice, and you can build a very large home that looks really poor. So it's more about just approval of the plans and make sure that it fits in with things. You'll oftentimes find rules in there prohibiting having junk or dilapidated vehicles in your yard or conducting business from your home. In the higher end developments, you might find specific finishes that you need to have. You might have to have actual quarry sawn stone on the front of your home, or different types of soffit fascia that aren't just typical. And those are cost drivers. So you do want to understand that before you go into it, so you're not surprised when it comes time. And most oftentimes you do need to get the developer's approval before you can build. So you want to make sure that your house plan will work in that neighborhood.
All right, we've got a few more minutes. I'll be wrapping up. We've got just a couple more questions. So if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to type those into the comment section of the Facebook Live video, and we can definitely answer those. there is a little bit of a delay, so we want to make sure that if you do have any questions, you have a chance to get those asked as well. So Adam, can you talk about the differences in the different types of houses, ranch, two-story, multi-story, et cetera, and how that can impact the design and the pricing of the house?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it is usually it drives the cost. So a ranch style home is, a home with just most of the living space on one floor. And then we'll oftentimes finish the basement under a ranch style home. People often think they'll save money with a two-story home by going up, and that is true. You will save if your main floor costs $150 a square foot. Going up can save you around 15%. So you'll pay $130 a square foot going up, or $135. With a ranch style home, if you finish your basement, that's usually finished at about a fifth of the cost of making your main floor bigger. So if it's $150 up, you can finish the basement for $30 a square foot. So that's a great way to get your dollar to travel much further than going two-story or a different route, or going with a bigger footprint. It is important to see modern homes and their basements so that you know that they can be finished nicely and comfortably. It's the days of stone foundations and cobwebs and low ceilings are gone. We can make basement finishes very nice. So that does help. Multi-story homes like bi-levels or tri-levels, those are going to be very specific to people who don't mind going up and down stairs. That keeps the footprint of the home smaller, and they usually price out better. The negative or concerns that I've heard from people over the years that they don't usually have much storage space, just because they utilize all of that space so well. Having a walkout basement is very nice. It makes the home more comfortable to live in, especially with basement finish, but you do need to consider your mobility or maintaining that yard, as well as the costs incurred. So obviously, if you need to drop 8 or 9 feet from the front yard to the backyard, there's going to be some grade change on it alongside of the home, whether that's by a slope or retaining walls or what have you. So there's usually some incurred costs for landscaping. It's harder to mow. You're going to go from having, say, a patio out of your back door to having a deck out of that, along with a patio underneath it. So I would kind of tell people usually to plan for an additional at least $10,000 building a walkout home compared to just a ranch style home. Everyone has personal preferences, and I think you should try to accomplish that. But at the end of the day, budget dictates almost every single project. And so if you need a lot of square footage, ranch style home with basement finish is a great way to go. If your budget isn't that large of a consideration, a two-story home can be great. They look grand. Everyone likes how they look. Just consider your mobility, your place in life. I do talk with older people, every day or every year, and they do say that the stairs they get old after a while, running up and down steps, and it's just, so it's kind of what pushed people more towards main floor living.
Okay. All right. I think that covers all the stuff that we had on our list to talk about. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Adam, that we haven't talked about that you'd like to highlight?
I guess just that, building a home can be great, and going through that process can be great. You do want to be comfortable with your builder and their process going into it, so that you know that you'll be happy at the end of it. It's probably going to cost a little bit more per square foot to build a home than it is to buy an existing home. But the idea is that you get a brand new home, you get it where you want it and exactly the way that you want it. And your maintenance should be minimal for many years to come versus having to do renovations right away. Yeah, that being said, I would definitely tell people to build versus buying, but it's not for everyone. And so those are the things you want to weigh out before you go into the process.
Right. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Adam, for joining us today and for covering the builder's perspective on what you need to know before you start. Again, a reminder that this will also be available on our Facebook page now once this is wrapped up, and we will also have it available on our YouTube channel as well for viewing at any time. So feel free to everybody who's watching or in the future to tune in to last week's part 1 with the lender and the title company, or to come back and watch this again at some point in the future. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.